Initiating podcast download. Prepare yourself. Put on your spandex. Lace up your boots. Wrap your wrists. Hide your razor blade. Head to gorilla position. Grease up your hair. Apply baby oil. Okay, apply more baby oil. Get into gimmick. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Have fun and be safe out there, brother. Welcome to Iron on Wrestling. Now your host, Gregory Iron.
Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to another edition of Iron on Wrestling. I am your host, Gregory Iron.
Pardon the interruption. I am your co-host, Aaron Bauer.
Aaron, how the hell are you?
Hey, I'm great. Things couldn't be better right now. I mean, here we are. We have a successful podcast. Let me just say this. We're coming off our highest rated show in week 1. Week 2 ended up being our lowest rated show. Bad job out of us. Bad job out of you, the fans. Why haven't you tuned in?
What are you talking about? You haven't even saw the numbers.
I saw numbers, all right. Their number is.
I'm sure you've seen numbers before in your life.
7's one of them.
Okay.
I saw that number.
The podcast numbers have been very good, actually, folks, and we thank you for supporting. Make sure you spread the word. Tell your friends. You can download Iron on Wrestling on all the major podcasting outlets. That's including Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, Google Play. Pandora, all the good ones. Look it up. We're on all of them. You can also find full episodes as well as clips over on the YouTube.com.
I watch?
The is not in YouTube, but
right.
What did you watch?
YouTube.
Yeah,
I'll like your comments. If you comment, I'll like it. Even if it talks about how bad I am or how bad Greg is, I will like those comments.
It's very brave of you.
Well, I'm putting it all on the line for this podcast. This has to be a success. So far, I believe it has been.
What happens if it's not successful, though? Do you have the backup
It
plan?
won't be. It won't be not successful. It
Okay.
has to be a success.
But what's your backup plan if it's not?
Why would there be a backup plan?
This is your sole income now? It's going to be from
Yep.
a podcast?
Yep. That's
Okay.
it.
Seems like
We're in, bruh.
Seems like a bad business decision.
I'm all in, bruh.
All right. Well, today's episode should be a very fun one for everyone. I got a chance last week to sit down and have a nice little conversation with the one and only Kimber Lee. And It's funny because as long as I've been around Kim all these years, it's been a lot of high and by and a little casual conversation like, did you watch my match? What'd you think? But we never really got a chance to sit down and actually talk. And so it was nice to spend a nice hour with her and get to know her because over the years, Kimber Lee has been one of the, in my opinion, premier women's wrestlers in professional wrestling.
Hey, no doubt about it. You know what? The first time she grabbed my attention was there was a J-Lit tournament. And it was on, I forget, we did like a J-Lit pre-show or something where I was in charge of putting together things like somebody did tarot reading cards. Who was she? She was with the Bateri?
Her real name is Sammy, but I can't think of her gimmick name right now.
Okay, so right. She did tarot reading. We had like a Nintendo set up, and people played video games with each other. And
like one of those pre-show gimmicks we used to do.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So that was my deal. And we had ACH come out and do a dance. ACH loved Albert.
Yeah.
What is he now in WWE NXT?
Jordan Miles?
Jordan Miles, there he is.
I'm surprised I knew that.
So he came out and danced. Well, then Kimber Lee came out, and it became like a dance battle.
Yeah.
She was tremendous.
Well, I don't know if you realize this.
Yeah.
Kim spent a lot of time dancing. In fact, the whole first 23 years of her life were focusing on dance, which we get into in this episode.
Well, I'm going to love to hear that because she was great. Yeah. I mean, ACH was great too. Jordan Miles was great too.
Yeah.
But it just, everything got up the level when she came out and began dancing. And a good deal. And it really entertained people, and I was entertained. And I'm sure if anybody can find that, there's a clip on YouTube of the two of them battle dancing, and it was great. So enjoy that.
It sounds tremendous. Now, Kim didn't participate in the buy a date with a female superstar, did she?
No, that was not her. I believe Veda Scott and I know who it was.
Who was it?
Ruby Riott.
Oh, man. Okay, so
Yeah.
now that brings back memories. Now, so for
Right?
those of you who don't know, back at these AIW pre-show parties, they were for a specific show. What was the show that they did it for? Was it like the Wrestle Rager or...
No, it was the JT Lightning
It was-
Invitational
okay,
tournament.
JT Lightning.
Yeah.
The JT Lightning tournament. They used to do this thing for a couple years where you could pay to have a date with one of the female wrestlers. I think it was like the highest bid. Right?
Allison Kay. That was the other one.
Oh man, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
she dated
okay.
that hackle dude.
Okay, so like if you can find them, maybe if I can find them, I can post them on the Iron on Wrestling social media. But like, so these dudes would bid for a date with the female wrestler of their choice, and these pictures with AK and Ruby Riott and Veda, when you see them, I think every single one of them. I think Allison Kay's was the best.
I loved it.
They look incredibly miserable.
Dude, I went all out on this too because like I remember setting up just like a little table.
Yeah.
And then I got a water bottle because I'm resourceful.
Yeah.
So I just whatever's around me, I will use as a resource. And I emptied a bottle of water halfway or something. I grabbed some weeds or flowers from outside of the building. I put them in that vase, which became a vase. It was a water bottle. It became a vase. The female athlete and her suitor sat at this table, and we gave them, I believe, each a hot dog from the stand, from the concession stand, and they each got like a root beer or something.
Super romantic.
Yes. And I remember this dude Hackle talking to AK, Allison Kay, and he said like, so what kind of music do you listen to?
I was just trying to get the conversation going.
And I remember her turning to him and said, shut up, don't ever talk to me again.
Amazing. Now Hackle was one of my bitter rivals
Right.
in AIW when I was there. So there are some gems just alone.
Not a bitter rival in the ring.
Outside of the ring.
He was a fan.
Big fan.
Yes, and he was
of
not
me,
a fan
though.
of yours.
Not of mine.
Exactly.
No fan of mine. In fact, if you look on YouTube to
Woo!
get an idea of what you're dealing with Matt Hackle, there's a video that has, I think, over 100,000 views where I'm trying to get into the building at AIW, and he confronts me in my Iron Curtain, which, if you don't know, the Iron Curtain, when I was a bad guy, was like this stable of goons, protectors, basically, that were bigger than me and stronger than me, and it had my back if anything went wrong. And it got to the point where I had so much legitimate heat in places like Cleveland and Chicago that guys like Joey Martini and Ben Boone and Jerry and Dick Justice became my real protectors because like guys would try to like beat my ass.
Right. There was
the ring.
legit heat.
And so there's this video with Matt Hackle when I'm trying to get into Turner's Hall where he legitimately tries to like slap and punch me, and Joey and Ben Boone have to hold him back for real.
World Star.
It was, I think someone yells at in the background.
Yep,
actually.
I'll never forget that.
So that's Matt Hackle, and he was the lucky man to go on a date with Allison Kay. And it's amazing that relationship didn't progress further. After
I always thought it would.
Yeah.
I always thought it would.
Yeah.
Or our buddy Jim from the movie theater.
Yes, good old
Yeah.
Jim. He always hooks us up with some.
had the highest bid for Veda Scott the one year.
Yeah,
Hundreds of dollars. And they just hung out in the ring together.
yeah.
And had like a lunch or whatever. What a great concept. And
Great. And of course, all that money was donated to a local charity, right?
you know what? That's interesting. That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah. I think it was the promoter's pocket.
Not sure exactly where that money went.
Yeah.
But it could have been used to fund Terry Funk coming in or something like that. So, not sure. Don't care.
Yeah.
But a great story.
Yeah. So me and Kim, we talked a lot about her dancing background, which we'll get into this interview. One of the big subjects we end up tackling was intergender wrestling. And I think, and I mentioned this in the interview, I consider Kimber Lee one of the, I guess, pioneers as far as bringing intergender wrestling out there on a larger scale, getting people to notice and take it more serious. And I don't remember the first time I started to see intergender wrestling specifically on a regular basis, but I do know that Kim was one of the first standouts, and we delve into that. Now, I'm sure when you got into wrestling back in the 90s, there wasn't a lot of intergender wrestling, right?
No, there was zero. And there was barely women on the card. If you got a woman to appear on the card, that was an attraction. But you couldn't get just one. You had to get two so they could wrestle each other.
Sure.
So, I don't know. It was a lot different back then. And the women weren't the athlete that the women of today are. Or the women even of 10 years ago that started with this intergender wrestling.
Yeah.
Ended up becoming. Like Kim, I could tell you this. Because I was on a booking team for AIW.
Yep.
And in the office. And I know that Kim was slated, penciled in to be the first AIW Women's Absolute Champion at one point.
When you
Not
say
sure
women's,
exactly.
When you say women's, you mean like the actual title. She was going to be the first woman to be.
That's what I mean. Yes,
the heavyweight
she was
champion.
going to be the heavyweight champion of AIW.
Yeah,
but she was going to be a woman. That was the first champion to be a woman.
There you
in
go.
AIW. Yes. I think that's how I mean it.
Okay.
So everybody thought a lot of her. She had a lot of skill. She had a lot of charisma. And I thought she was on to great things. And I think she did, right? She went to NXT. She's done a lot.
She did some NXT stuff, and, she spent some time there, gained some additional knowledge, brought that back to the indies, and she's still killing it and doing things like Chikara and traveling all over the country. And we're going to delve in a lot of that stuff later on. What are your thoughts on intergender wrestling? I'm putting you on the spot here. How do you feel about it?
There's a place for it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy calling it. It's fun.
Yeah.
At the same time, I can see how others may think differently.
Yeah.
But I don't know. When I watch wrestling, I just watch wrestling to be entertained.
Sure.
And anything that's entertaining is a good thing.
Absolutely.
So intergender wrestling, if I'm entertained by it, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
If it sucks, it's not done right, I could leave it.
Yeah.
But I love when it's good. And Kimber Lee did it great. And Ruby Riott did it great.
Yeah.
And Candice did it great. I would say those are like the top three maybe that I know of that I could name off the top of my head.
Sure.
That I thought were like maybe pioneers. Yeah,
there are a lot of great ladies out there, lady wrestlers. And when you talk about great lady wrestlers over the course of the past decade and a half, especially on the independent circuit, I'd like to think that Sarah Del Rey also really paved the way for the way that the girls wrestle today on the independents. And obviously that shows just how great she was, because now she's at WWE, at NXT, teaching a lot of these girls things.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing matches with Sarah main eventing against El Generico, who's now Sami Zayn.
Right.
And also one of the best matches I've ever seen was at the ECW arena during my time at Chikara. It was the main event. It was Claudio Castagnoli versus Sarah Del Rey, and Claudio obviously is Cesaro now
right.
in WWE, and they killed it. So like when I think of girls that really set the standard for what women wrestling has become, I think of Sarah Del Rey. Is there anyone that comes to mind for you besides Sarah?
Definitely. I could tell you right now, Badunkadunk.
Who?
In Detroit, her and I headlined a major match in the local mall.
What?
Yeah.
What?
That's a real thing.
Okay, tell me about this.
Maybe 2001, 2002.
And her name was Badunkadunk.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that was like because of her butt or something. But
it wasn't an ironic
her
thing.
name,
like she had an actual Badunkadunk.
Well, I don't know because I don't look at those things. I only look at personalities and
Specifically, skill set and
Right.
maneuvers. Yes.
But she was, great in the ring, great to work with. I wasn't that good, but we could mask my flaws, and she could go over on me. So I have no problem with that.
Okay then. Wow.
So what'd you do this weekend?
My weekend was I booked myself into quite the situation, and I was in Maryland on Friday, and then on Saturday I was in St. Louis, and then on Sunday I was in Pittsburgh. And I don't know how good you are at geography, but none of those places in the order of which I went to them are exactly close to each other geographically. So I ended up traveling 5 hours from Cleveland to my first show in Maryland, which was for Big Time Wrestling. And I wasn't sure what I was actually going to do on the card, but it ended up that my match ended up being me and a very green young man, but he did very well, and I can't remember his name for the life of me, and I feel bad because he did so well in the situation that we were in. And it was me, him, and the Patriot. Not the original Patriot, Del Wilkes, but Tom Brandy, who now does the gimmick, which I think the situation is he bought the rights of the gimmick from Del Wilkes. I don't know that specifically, but it was me, this kid, and the Patriot randomly teaming against James Ellsworth and Blackout. That was a real match that actually happened this weekend. And
James Ellsworth, the dude from WWE?
The dude from that was in the WWE, yeah. So that was a match that occurred, and they were actually out at their gimmick table, that being the Patriot and James Ellsworth, right up until bell time. And it turns out that they come to the back, and I look at the card, and we're match 2. So match 1 is in the ring. So I'm like, oh boy, we have to put something together here. And Ruckus, one half of Blackout, he showed up right at bell time, and we threw some stuff together real quick, and it was actually cool because I've always wanted to work with Blackout because they've been around for years, and Ruckus is an athletic machine, still is. And we went out there, and I think we probably went about 10 minutes. I think Tom Brandy handing out flags to all the kids in the front row lasted longer than the actual match.
Tom Brandy?
Yeah, as a Patriot.
Wait. Oh.
What, are you confused?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because the Patriot I thought was Del Wilkes.
Yeah, I just said.
Yeah.
I just said I think he bought the gimmick from.
He bought the gimmick. Okay.
I think that's the situation.
Okay.
I think
and Tom Brandy's no longer Sal Sincere?
He never does Sal Sincere, but I
Why
would
not?
imagine there's more money in being the USA guy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
who really remembers Sal Sincere?
Yeah. Okay.
So, I don't know. He's been doing the Patriot. You've never been on a show with him doing the Patriot?
Maybe.
He's been doing it for
But I've
years.
also done that gimmick.
You've been the Patriot.
I was same mask,
Okay.
same wristbands.
Okay.
You know, the ones that are like more like forearm
yeah.
bands. Okay. Those, and then same tights, but I was called Unknown American Man.
It's very creative.
And then also at one point I was called U.S. Male. MALE.
I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. Actually, that makes me laugh and makes me think of a random story. One time I remember Gargano had to tell his dad.
Yeah. All right. We're running short on time.
Shut up. One time Gargano had to tell his dad his email address.
Yeah.
And his dad could sometimes be a cranky old man, and he's older. He's in his 70s now. And so he asked Johnny what his email is, and it was like johnnygargano@hotmail.com.
Yeah.
So he tells his dad.
I see where this is
So he tells his dad johnnygargano@hotmail.com. He's like, "Oh, hot mail, huh?" And Johnny's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You think you're a hot male, huh?" And Johnny's like, "No, that's my address, dude."
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, so okay, very creative. U.S. mail, I like that. So that was my match on Friday, and I actually replaced someone on my team. It was none other than Gilbert. I don't know if he had to work or something, like at a real job, but he wasn't there, and I took his place. So I guess Had I
you know what
known-
I heard?
What?
I can give you the scoop on this.
What's up?
'cause a lot of times I have the scoop.
Sure.
Before the match,
Mm-hmm.
he banged his head on the door.
I don't think he does that.
Concussion protocol, brah.
Yeah, okay.
That's
more,
what happened.
That's more of a Goldberg thing, I believe.
Wait, they're different?
Two different people.
Oh.
But I guess
now you're giving me a scoop.
I'm giving you the scoop. I think if I known that I was
Yeah.
replacing Gilbert,
Yeah.
I would have wore just black tights.
I'm sure you would have.
Wore a bald cap, and I definitely would have came out as Gregberg.
Yeah, I would love that.
100%. But I was not prepared, so that didn't happen. So I drove 5 hours of that show, and I immediately stopped at a Waffle House. Got 2 chicken breasts and a waffle, and it was late. It was late at night. It was about 11:30, and I got on the road because now I had to drive about 8 hours to Fort Wayne, Indiana, to meet up with a car of dudes from Detroit, to then drive 5.5 more hours to St. Louis for Glory Pro Wrestling. So, and this car from Detroit was going to meet up with me at.
Wait, Detroit?
Yeah.
Was Badunkadunk in the car?
I don't know if she even wrestles anymore because I don't even know who she is.
Dixie Licks. That was another one of her
That was
names.
a real name.
That was not a real name.
That was a real name that was used, though.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Also Randy West.
I know Randy.
I know you know that one.
She's made some gear for me, so I like Randy. She's awesome. But no, so the car consisted of we had a few guys in the car. We had Joe Coleman, who's a Detroit boy, great dude. We had Abraham, who used to do Impact for a while, and then Hakeem Zayn, which we talked about
Right,
on the last episode, who I worked with, who works for Impact currently, and they did me a favor by meeting up with me because it really saved me a little bit of travel time.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little bit of sleep in the car, but not much, maybe about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But I hauled ass from Maryland, 8 hours to Fort Wayne.
Dude, you're nuts.
Instead of like sleeping for a little bit,
Yeah.
because I still had about an hour and a half to wait before they got there, and I knew I'd get a little sleep in the car. I met them at a Planet Fitness, so I went into the Planet Fitness.
And you got your pump on?
I got a quick workout in, did a little bit of shoulders and back, and did some cardio because I'm insane. And then yeah, so then I showered and they met up with me and they're like, okay, like you can go to sleep now. And I was like, I'm not even tired. And I stayed up with them for about an hour in the car, and then I passed out for about 90 minutes.
I know about passing out in cars.
I'm sure you do. You've had a lot of.
So earlier today, I thought about going to the gym. And I said, well, I have this podcast to do with Greg. He says he'll be there at 6. Mm-hmm. He probably won't be there till 7. But that was my excuse for not going to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got off work at 4. So I had 3 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, I went, no, I better not go. I don't want something to happen.
Yeah, well.
What, I work out for a half hour?
That would have been horrible. You can't have that in your life. So
Go ahead.
I got that workout in and got in the car, took a nap, got to the show at Glory Pro, and I worked a scramble match. It was the first time Glory Pro actually ran St. Louis too, and it would turn out really good. They had maybe had like 300 people packed in this building, and they were hot as F the whole night. They were into everything. We actually opened the show with the scramble, and it just felt really good.
Yeah.
It's going to be up on Independent Wrestling TV probably in the next couple weeks. As you're hearing this podcast, you can find it on there. Just search for Glory Pro, and I believe they have the date of the show listed in order, going backwards, I believe. So you'll be able to see the most recent event. I think it was Country Slammer was the name of the event. But anyhow, look it up, watch it.
I get it.
Nelly
reference.
Play on Nelly. So it was a great match. I was really happy with it, and all the dudes did super well. And I actually, what you'll be hearing next week.
Yes.
We're gonna give you a little scoop here. Next week, we'll be talking with the Lone Star, Kurt Stallion, because I got an interview with him that we did immediately following his match. And Kurt is one of my favorite dudes in the world. So after you listen to the Kim interview this week, be prepared for next week, which will be Kurt Stallion. I think
I can't believe you just spoiled everybody.
Well, I'm just letting people know. I want them to keep tuning in. Got to keep having those high
ratings. That's the kind of guy
right?
you are.
That's what I do, giving stuff away. So after that match, me, Abe, Hakeem and Joe Coleman, we got in the car, drove about an hour, got to a Denny's, had a delicious Denny's dinner together, and talked about.
Did you get the skillet?
I did get the skillet, actually.
I know you
Fair
would.
veggie skillet with 2 additional egg whites.
Yeah, of course you did.
And I also got pancakes because I was feeling good about myself. So I got some
Wow.
pancakes, got some carbs in me. And, you know, I this has to be like the funnest part of wrestling for me besides the actual aspect of wrestling is, you know, me, Joe, Abe, and Hakeem, we don't all know each other that well, and that's the first time we all traveled together.
Right.
But we had so much good chemistry just traveling in the car together and sitting down and having that food and just talking professional wrestling.
Yep.
For me, like, that's one of the best parts of the whole thing was just
Yeah, I
talking
missed
like
that.
psychology and talking about like, you know, comparing today's wrestling to yesteryear and like how, you know, like I can't remember the exact subject we were talking about, but I just know that I felt us all clicking, and the rest of the trip, as tired as I was, and knowing that as soon as we got back to Fort Wayne, I had to jump in the car by myself and drive immediately to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
It just kept me going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where it's like I'm on very little sleep, but like if besides getting hurt in a professional wrestling ring, if the worst part of my job is that I'm not getting that much sleep until the weekend's over, it can't be that bad, right? Because I could be doing some shitty 9 to 5.
Right.
So
Or an 8 to 4.
or an 8 to 4. Yeah, I've been there too, and so we just had some good brother talks in the car, and it was really cool. So I probably got another 2 hours of sleep in that car ride to my car in Fort Wayne. So again, as a reminder, so at this point I've driven 5 hours to Maryland, then 8 hours by myself to Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
Then 5 more hours to St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
What's the math on that? 18 hours?
Sure.
18 hours. Then
I had 37, but go ahead.
That's incorrect.
Not good in math.
Then
Talk
5
to Xavier. He's good in math.
5 hours back to my car in Fort Wayne. So now we're at 23 hours. And now I'm going to drive 6 hours by myself immediately to Pittsburgh because I need to be there for call time at 11 o'clock.
Mm.
And I was actually going to try to sleep for an hour in my car, but I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't actually because there was traffic backed up because I was wrestling at a concert. So there was a lot of traffic for people going to the concert once I got close to Pittsburgh. And the concert that I was wrestling on was headlined by The Offspring.
Yeah.
And
Come out and play.
had some lower tier bands I'm a big fan of, like Real Friends and Knuckle Puck, and a lot of great bands were in attendance for that. Here's the best part, though. As I get there and I check in, I find out that The Offspring has canceled, and they're the headlining band, and I didn't get the details on it or whatever, but I just felt like, how does that even work? Like, because like, they're a pretty recognizable band. How do you just cancel the day of the show? So I think who ended up headlining was Simple Plan, but they were already there anyway. So like, they just happened to be like the most known act that could headline. Right. So that's pretty unfortunate. But in general,
that's disappointing about The Offspring.
Yeah. So I don't know the details, but they weren't there.
I guess they gone away.
Okay, I see what you did there. They were not pretty fly for white guys. That didn't really work. I just kind of shoehorned that.
Yeah, I like the way you did that. Though.
Okay, so the turnout for the wrestling itself, though, as part of the festival, was pretty sweet. It was actually put on by Rise Wrestling, great promotion out there in Pittsburgh, and it was me versus Puff, who I've talked about before, one of the Buffalo boys, upstate area, and he's really getting his name out there. He actually told me that he just filmed some stuff for that. What's the I'm trying to think of it, the docu-series that's been on the Dark Side of the Ring.
Vice?
Yeah, Vice. Yeah, Dark Side of the Ring. He just filmed
Dark
some
Side
stuff
of the
for
Ring.
that. So like, I don't know if they did like a special on him or if he was doing some of the interviews for the actual docu-series show or whatever, but yeah, he was just a part of that. And I really feel like Puff's getting his name out there and he's going to blow up real soon. But we had a nice little fun match. We were just goofing around and stuff, and crowd was really into it, so it was all in all a good experience. Before I forget, though, I want to point out that actually the last weekend, the busted window that I told you about,
yes,
I got it fixed.
Okay.
And I got a lot of support, a lot of fan support from people out there who are buying T-shirts on Pro Wrestling Tees, which I really appreciate. But also, Ryan from Pro Wrestling Tees, the owner of Pro Wrestling Tees, reached out to me a couple days after it happened, and he sent me some money and said, hey, take care of your car window. And that really meant a lot to me. Yeah, so like getting my car window smashed in Chicago, if you didn't listen to the last episodes, someone just randomly broke my window when I was at Freelance Wrestling a couple weeks ago, and it was a super inconvenience to my life. But because of the fans, because of Ryan from Pro Wrestling Tees, I got it taken care of. My windows are as good as new. So sometimes I have the worst luck in the world, but it pays to not be a complete piece of shit because I got fans like you that will help me out. And Ryan, I can't thank you enough. Can't thank Pro Wrestling Tees enough. And
good job out of Ryan from Pro Wrestling Tees, and good job out of Pro Wrestling Tees for being there for dudes that just need it.
Yeah. So I just want to point that out there. But so back to the road trip though. All in all, after the 8 hours, the 6 hours from Fort Wayne to Pittsburgh, I had to drive 3 hours back home, and I was going to stay for a little bit of the concert, but I was just too damn tired. So I ended up putting in a lot of travel time this weekend.
Yeah.
Now, I know you ran the roads up and down. Do you have a long road trip that sticks out to you, or do you have a ridiculous road trip that might stand out to you?
Well, most recently, just this weekend, as a matter of fact, I went to Cedar Point. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of the Cedar Point. I'm actually playing with a squeeze toy right now in the background.
That's Lola.
Yeah.
My dog has never played with a toy in her life.
Until right now.
While we're recording.
Of course.
Anyway, I had some Dippin' Dots, and they were delicious.
Okay, now when I say road trip, I meant like wrestling road trip because you used to be in the wrestling business.
Well, definitely.
You actual moron.
So let's go with, I'll tell you about the time, one of my first road trips, I went with, do you remember Animal Steele, me talking to you about him? Howard the Animal Steele?
Yeah, not George the Animal
Right.
Steele, which people would actually be familiar with, but Howard Animal Steele, who was an impersonator for many years on the independent circuit that was so known that when he passed away locally, people thought that the fucking real George the Animal Steele died.
Yes.
And actually, sometimes local people, they still reference that. Not the recent death
Right.
of George the Animal Steele. They reference the one from a few years back.
Yes.
From the local guy. But anyways, yes, I remember him.
So Howard the Animal Steele owned a pink Cadillac, which he claimed he had bought, and the original owner was a man by the name of Elvis Aaron Presley.
Okay, so he
had a title for this pink Cadillac limousine.
Okay.
And he showed it to me before, and I don't know if it was worked or whatever, but it did say that Elvis Aaron Presley owned this vehicle before Howard the Animal Steele.
How does one, let's assume this was real.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you think Howard Animal Steele is affording this pink Cadillac?
Through his bookings as Animal Steele?
Did he have a real job that you know of?
Yeah. He worked at the FOP, which is Fraternal Order of Police. So he would call on the phone to people and say, hey, would you like to donate to the Fraternal Order of Police? And if so, we'll give you a card that's like a get out a ticket that you can use once if you get like a speeding ticket. I don't know. Everything was a scam, it feels like.
Sure.
Everything's a work. Everything. It's pro wrestling, bro.
Yeah.
So it was Animal Steele, Rod Destiny, my trainer, myself, Sal, that I was training with, and then maybe like Rod's kid or Animal's kid or maybe both of them, whatever. So we were taking a trip out to Pennsylvania for ECW November to Remember. I want to say 97.
Okay.
It's the one with Shane Douglas main eventing with Bam Bam Bigelow in Douglas's hometown.
I believe that's 97, yep.
Yeah, okay. So we were headed to that event as guests of Sabu and Rob Van Dam.
Oh, wow.
Because legitimately, the Animal, real or fake, had some ties with these guys.
Yeah.
And was great friends with the Sheik, apparently. So we go out to this event. We're driving in this pink Cadillac that Elvis once owned.
Uh-huh.
I'm in the back. Rod's driving. Animal's in the front seat. Tinted windows, everything. We get out to the venue, after the event is over, we're parked in the back, and we're told not to get out of the vehicle. Me, Sal, and then the 2 kids that were with us.
Okay.
We're told not to get out. Animal comes, and he's bringing Sabu, Rob Van Dam, Taz, Bill Alfonso, and I believe that was it. Came out to the back of the car, popped the trunk, and there was a bunch of gold inside the trunk.
Actual gold?
No. I mean, it was Howard the Animal Steele. So it was as authentic as Animal Steele.
So this is the shit that's going to turn your fingers green.
Probably eventually if you take a shower with it on, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so we're running fake gold from Cleveland to Monaca, PA for ECW wrestlers.
Yeah.
To buy.
Did you have any idea this
No idea any of this was happening.
Okay.
I had no idea what was in the trunk.
Okay.
I just knew that I was being trained by these guys to wrestle and to be part of a professional wrestling organization, whatever.
Amazing.
So we get there. Animal pops the trunk. They're looking at all these gold rings, and I can look out the back window, and I kind of see what's going on, and I kind of know what's going on. And Animal has like a lot of these rings that are gold rings, but they're letters. You know, so if you put it on your finger, it has like a letter on it.
Yeah.
So like for Taz, he's trying to sell Taz these rings. There's a T, an A, and a Z. Obviously, Rob Van Dam, RVD. He wants those on it. And Sabu, probably SABU, whatever.
Yeah.
So we're selling bunk gold to ECW guys, and they know that it's not real. But for whatever reason, they respect Animal enough that they're going to buy. I believe they're going to buy some jewelry off him.
Yeah.
Some bunk gold jewelry off of this man.
God.
I remember seeing Taz, and he was in a pair of shorts.
Yeah.
His legs were as big as me at the time. I mean, huge.
Yeah.
But even bigger maybe than his legs were Van Dam's.
Yeah.
Because he was wearing, it was the 90s, so the shorts weren't that long.
Sure.
You know, they were above the knee.
Yeah.
And these guys were in great shape. I remember seeing them. They didn't see us right away. So there was a point where Animal went to go do business back in the arena with somebody. He told us it was Paul E. he was going to do business with about bringing ECW to Cleveland or some such thing. So Van Dam's like, I don't know, man. I don't think I'm into this at all. You know what? I'll just piss on this dude's car right now.
What? Okay.
And he doesn't know we're in the back. There's four of us in the back in these tinted windows. And Van Dam whips it out. He's just pissing on Animal's tires.
Oh, my God. What?
And then a tree and...
Jesus. So you got a good look at the hog?
Well, low key.
Okay.
Big hog.
Whoa, all right.
Hey, congratulations, Van Dam. You earned it.
We're getting all the scoops on the podcast today.
So, yeah, especially my dude Sal. Man, he saw that thing right up close and personal because he was right by the window. And good for him. I'm glad he got to see it.
Oh, boy. I bet you he goes to sleep at night and still sees RVD's PP.
We still talk about that on occasion.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, and then I also think there was a point where during that show, the Canadian Bad Boy was there.
Uh-huh.
And Sabu threw a hot dog at him.
Okay.
I mean, I can't even remember that. I maybe misremember. It might have been a different show.
Sure.
But I remember Sabu throwing a hot dog at the Canadian Bad Boy, which nobody's going to know probably who Bad Boy is.
Canadian
here.
Bad Boy was a local wrestler in Cleveland. He actually was one of the guys that I did my tryout with.
Yeah.
At the Cleveland All Pro Wrestling Academy back in 2006.
One of the first guys I ever worked with, too. Good dude, man. Just had the face you just wanted to throw a hot dog at.
And it sounds about right. Well, that's quite the road trip story, Aaron. And I know you do have a lot of ECW experiences, and I feel like we could probably do a podcast just on those alone one day. But we got to get down to business. Let's talk about the road trips that I got coming up this weekend. This weekend and all week long, actually, I'm going to be in Los Angeles. I'm hoping to record some episodes for future podcast episodes of Iron on Wrestling. I'm not going to divulge any details on that because if I can't get these certain interviews, then there's going to be some disappointment if I drop some names and then they don't end up being on podcasts. But I'm going to do some recording while I'm out there. But I also have some other work to do on October 11th. This Friday, October 11th, I'm going to be appearing at Hood Slam in Oakland, California. And it's their special Glam show, which they do the second Friday of every month. Now, Glam might sound like a familiar sounding name or term. It's very similar to Glow. Glam is Hood Slam's version of Glow, where it's basically women, but some of the guys participate and they wear drag. I will be wrestling in drag this Friday, October 11th, Oakland, California, the Oakland Metro Opera House.
Is this intergender?
I guess technically.
So you're a pioneer?
I don't think I'm a pioneer. I'm just some idiot who's going to put on a wig and wear a dress this Friday in Oakland for Hood Slam. And then I'm going to hang around on Saturday for Jacked Wrestling Comedy, which will take place at the Pack Theater, 6470 Santa Monica Boulevard in Los Angeles, California, where for the first time ever, I'll be taking on Gentleman Jervis, a good friend of mine for many, many years. Gentleman Jervis and myself one-on-one. And I think it's important to note that this Saturday, as I wrestle Gentleman Jervis, it will be my 33rd birthday. Yes, I'm spending my birthday. That's not birthday with an F, in California. This is my second year in the row spending my birthday in California. I'm super excited about it. So if you're in the Los Angeles area or the Oakland area this weekend, I encourage you to come out to see me at Hood Slam in Oakland or in Los Angeles for Jacked Wrestling Comedy. I'm also going to be showing up probably as you're listening to this on Wednesday. If you've downloaded on Wednesday, I might make an appearance at Bar Wrestling, which is taking place that night, and they have the Rock and Roll Express in action, as well as several other sweet names. Joey Ryan will be there. I encourage you to go out and check out Bar Wrestling, whether I'm there or not. Tonight, if you're listening to this on at the time the podcast drops, it's going to be a blast. It's always a blast in California. I'm looking forward to this week. But now we got to get down to the real business, the reason why you're here. Kimber Lee, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, as I touched on, intergender wrestling, her time as a dancer, even her recent sobriety. It's going to be an interesting episode. You ready to get down to this?
I am all in.
Let's get down. Down with the clown. Here we go. Me and Kimberly, one-on-one. Boom. I've got an important question for all you wrestling fans out there. Are you looking for hard-hitting wrestling journalism that is every bit as trustworthy and fact-based as professional wrestling itself? Well, then, you've got no choice but to check out kayfabenews.com. Kayfabe News is unreal news about an unreal sport. It's the world's premier wrestling news site. Well, not exactly. I guess it's more like The Onion, but it's entirely about pro wrestling. You've surely seen some of the headlines. I'm talking like Hogan tells brother something, Cena visits injured self in hospital, or Lashley brashly lashes back at Backlash as a mismatch of trashy squash matches. They've even written a story about yours truly defeating Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship at an indie show in Cleveland, and you never know, that might come true someday. But this isn't about me. This is about Kayfabe News, and I strongly encourage you to check out all of the stories on kayfabenews.com. And hey, if you have some time, they've got a hilarious new YouTube show, which drops every Tuesday at youtube.com/kayfabe news. And you know I have a great t-shirt collection. I've got a bunch of great shirts that I've gotten that support Kayfabe News, and you can get your very own just by going to prowrestlingtees.com/kayfabe news. Kayfabe News, remember, it's not fake news. It's unreal. All right, so I'm sitting in an abandoned bank with Kimber Lee.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
This is the ideal setting for an interview.
Yes, it is. And I think we leave it at that, and we give zero explanation to how we got here.
just we're in this abandoned bank, and we're just hanging out. We're not going to tell anyone why.
It's
how.
also kind of a yoga studio.
It
also
is.
not going to explain it.
Yeah. It's like a makeshift yoga studio. We were just talking about for a second, our mutual love for yoga. Do you do yoga often?
I not as often as I would like because my schedule is crazy, but I've probably practiced since I was 13 or 14. I have a cousin who's a yoga instructor, and it's great just to relax, stretch out, get all the kinks out, especially after what we do.
Yeah, for sure. What about the DDP yoga? Have you ever done that?
I have never done DDP yoga, actually.
You're missing out. It actually, at first, it was one of those things that, you know, I guess it goes with the stereotypical, I'm a guy, I don't know if I should do yoga thing, but that's the point of DDP yoga, and like Zach Gowen got me hooked on it.
Oh, okay.
He had DDP send it to me a few years back, and it was life-changing. Very difficult, too, and actually, obviously because of my disability, I never thought I could like do a headstand, but I could totally do a headstand now.
Hell
because of DDP
yeah.
yoga. So it's pretty life-changing. I actually want to get back into it, but yeah. So thank you for sitting down with me,
Yeah, absolutely.
taking time out of your busy schedule. What's your wrestling schedule look like lately?
It's been fairly hectic. This weekend is King of Trios for
Oh, yeah,
Chikara.
that's right.
It's the big one. I am unfortunately with the Crucible at the moment, against my will, but sometimes you gotta atone for your past sins, I guess is what
For
you would
sure,
call that.
for
But
sure.
so I've got King of Trios this weekend, and then if I could remember my schedule, I'd tell you what's coming up after that.
Yeah.
I think I'll be back at Beyond and GCW. It's a doubleheader show the week after that. And
Awesome.
then I would stick to looking at my Twitter and Instagram to find out where I'll be after that, because 2 weeks is about as far ahead as I can remember.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I can't even remember what I ate for lunch today. So I mean, that's a lot of brain problems, I guess.
Oh, I should probably say this. My Twitter and Instagram are at Kimber_LEE90.
There it is.
Cheap plug.
Yep. So Chikara's meant it's been a big deal for your career. You were the former Chikara Grand Champion,
Yes.
which you're the only chick to do so.
Yes, I'm still the only female. And at the time, I was the only female to ever hold the main championship in a male-dominated company.
Yeah.
Which it's really cool to see how many women have done that since, because I don't know, for me it feels like I kind of was the first one, so I made it possible for women to have that opportunity, and it's really cool to see something like that happen when you never thought you would do anything like that when you started wrestling.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when you won the Grand Championship and like what a big deal it was. And then I was going to talk about this later, but I remember it was like a huge deal for you and Heidi Lovelace to main event for the championship. I think that was Secret of the Ooze back in March of 2016.
Sounds right. I know it was in North Carolina. I don't remember the name of the show, but it was in North Carolina.
Yeah, like I remember like that had a lot of buzz behind it because as far as I could remember, that was the first time that two ladies main evented for a title of a major promotion.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And I believe she might have lost it at this point. She might have been I don't remember if she was still the Young Lions Cup champion at that point. But we were both champion. Like, I think she was the first woman to ever do that, too.
Yeah. And the match itself had a great structure to it that I was a really big fan of, especially like towards the finish. You guys really worked over Heidi's head and did a lot of German suplex. Was that after the Brock Lesnar thing?
Right around the same time.
Okay, so you did a lot of German suplexes, but it was different because like German suplexes are a big part of your arsenal in general. But also, you did a thing where you built to the bridging suplex and Heidi kicked out, and then you did the Gonzo bomb, which was sick and crazy. And it's like it's great because like not a lot of girls do the Gonzo bomb, and you make it look so awesome and effortless. And Heidi kicked out, and the finish was submission. Which submission was it? Do you remember?
It's a weird one. I don't use it very often. I called it the coronation hold, but it's kind of I kind of hook your face in one crook of my elbow and your foot in the other, and then I make my hands lock, so I turn you into a pretzel.
Who taught you that one, or is that something you
that
looked
is
up?
a Mike Quackenbush specialty.
That
He taught
makes
me that
sense.
one.
Mike Quackenbush is a genius in a lot of regards as far as what he can do in the ring, as far as booking out storylines. Now, as far as you winning the Grand Championship, did you have any inclination that was going to occur leading up to it, or when did Mike kind of give you the heads up? Because when I worked with Mike back in like 2010 through 2012, he was very secretive about storylines and like kind of giving you like little bits and pieces of everything that he was doing, but not enough to where like I think he was like afraid that we would leak stuff on the internet. I don't know.
I don't know. I think he likes to leave some of the mystery for us too, because I mean, I don't know. It's fun for me watching the storylines build, even when I'm in them. But as far as how much I knew, maybe just a couple months leading up to it, just because there were some loose ends here and there he wanted me to tie up with other places. But yeah, it wasn't very long. It wasn't much of a lead up. And I remember just being like, wait, I'm gonna what?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, that's a big deal to have that opportunity thrust upon you. Then you're almost like paving the way for other girls, and now it's like it's a situation where that wouldn't be so out of place for something like that to happen, but at the time it was a brand new situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you weren't always a pro wrestler. You grew up in Seattle.
Yes.
What was that like?
Seattle's great. I still miss it. I don't know if I would go. I mean, maybe someday I'll end up back there. I don't know. I'm a drifter at this point. But Seattle was awesome. I grew up raised on alternative and grunge music and lots of coffee.
A lot of Nirvana, a lot of Pearl Jam, things like that.
Pearl Jam, Audioslave, Soundgarden.
Yeah.
We'll get real grungy and I'll say Tad.
Anybody know
who
man,
Tad is?
Super grungy. Jesus.
Yeah, I could put. That's how you know I'm from Seattle.
Yeah. So obviously you have the music scene out there, and somehow you fell into doing ballet early on.
Well, it didn't fall. I kind of remember. It's one of those like really hazy memories that might be real, might not, because I was super young, because I started ballet when I was 2. But I remember my mom asking me, do you want to dance? And me being like, yeah, I do. Just as a little kid, hazy memory. And I did ballet from 2 until I still take a class. Not very often. I can't say I'm practicing regularly anymore. But I'll take a class here and there still. So pretty much my entire life, I have a degree in dance education from University of the Arts. So
that's awesome. Now here's my thing. I've known about your ballet background for a while, and I've always wanted to get your thoughts on this saying. You know, every time we talk about pro wrestling, you say it's not ballet, and I've always thought that is incredibly offensive, because I've known other people that have taken ballet, and it's super difficult.
I'll let you put on an old pair of my point shoes one of these days, and you tell me how that feels.
For sure, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's rough on the body, and it takes coordination and skills. Like, if you were to compare ballet to wrestling, like, what are like a lot of the similarities you would say?
Being able to remember movement by just watching it and being able to pick up stuff that way. Footwork, flexibility, endurance. Even some of like the etiquette stuff that you go through in ballet, I feel like some of it's similar with your veterans in wrestling. Like you let the veterans sleep, they kind of get the better spot in the locker room. In like ballet, if there's a company class before a show, you make sure the company members get the bar spot before you come in and get yours. You might not get a good spot. So little things like that were even similar.
You got to come and shake everyone's hand.
We don't shake everybody's hand. That part does not exist.
Got to give them a super soft handshake to make sure you're not stiff out there on the dance floor.
No, it's more like you don't talk to the company dancers. They're the company.
So, would you say that ballet prepared you for professional wrestling, athletics in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely gave me a leg up, just because I came in being able to pick up movement quickly, already being an athlete, so physicality and having to have a lot of endurance to be able to get through training wasn't difficult. But that's not saying that pro wrestling isn't difficult. There were certain little parts that were easier for me, I think.
What were you like growing up? What kind of things were you into?
I was a very weird kid.
I think that could stand for a lot of professional wrestlers.
I was definitely into wrestling, but I actually wasn't allowed to watch it as a kid, so I had to sneak it. I remember it was probably 5th grade or so. 5th or 6th grade. I remember I had China's book, and I hid it at school, and that's how I read that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if my mom even knows to this day that I ever read that, but and so I would sneak it at friends' houses and watch it and stuff too. But other than that, I had no idea about like independence or anything besides the little bit I would catch on TV here and there. Other than that, like, I don't know. I would like collect spiders and stuff and put them in jars, and I had probably like 15 of them in my desk at one point.
Oh, wow.
Just living in there.
Yeah.
And then my teacher found them one day. That was a fun day.
Oh, no. That's a
But yeah, I was a strange bird. Didn't have very many friends.
That'll happen. How did you get your hands on that China book?
It was like the one friend I had. Her name was Courtney. She had it. And
Okay.
she let me borrow it.
Was
That's
that
how I
your
got it.
first like exposure to wrestling?
The book wasn't, because I had watched it and I had already loved China. I was always drawn to her because she was in there fighting the dudes, and I thought that was great. So once my friend told me that she had that book, I asked to read it.
So do you remember like your first specific wrestling memory as far as like watching it and like kind of being like, oh, this is something that kind of piques my interest, or you just remember like some of the cast of characters?
I'd say it'd be more cast of characters than specific match or thing I watched. Like China and Triple H together was one of my favorite things, and that's still my favorite variation of his song ever.
My Time?
Yeah.
Me and Johnny Gargano just talked about that, like how sad we were when he changed to the game.
Is this on? That
Yeah,
part,
yeah.
it's the best.
I was super depressed in 2001 when
Yeah.
he changed it. It was a great version.
But I loved them. I loved Y2J version Jericho. It was great. I do remember the countdown. I'm pretty sure I was watching that when that happened.
Yeah.
And when I first started wrestling, I'd actually put my hair up in the little ponytail because I had super long blonde hair when I started. And I'd say, well, now I'm Y2K.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
But yeah, it was more the people and the characters that I remembered. The Rock, loved The Rock.
For
Stone
sure.
Cold.
Now, I'm assuming that you weren't allowed to watch wrestling in that time period because it wasn't exactly PG like it is now.
Yeah, that was the reasoning. I was the firstborn child, and my mom was very sheltering a little bit towards the beginning. Not that it wasn't. I don't blame her.
Yeah. It was a different time in the wrestling industry for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So your mom was against it. Is your dad in the picture?
I don't talk to him too much anymore. Like, my parents got divorced probably 10 years ago now. So I was older when it happened, but me and my dad just aren't close anymore. I don't know.
Gotcha. No,
Yeah.
That's cool. That makes sense. But your mom was super supportive of things like the ballet and in general. Like I imagine, like she pushed you towards.
Oh
your
yeah,
goals.
she has been my number one support always. She's the person who made sure I had anything I needed for ballet, pushed me towards that. So she was not very happy when she found out that all this money she had put towards dance and now my little girl's trying to wrestle.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It took a while. It took some warming up, but now she's my biggest fan, so it's great.
So dancing was the goal.
Yeah, originally it was, but I wanted to be a ballerina more than anything. But unfortunately, same as wrestling, a lot of it is right place, right time, right genetics.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100 pounds, and I have very flat feet, and so for ballet, you've got flat feet, it's not going to work out. Like,
Sure.
And so towards like my later years, I started to swing more towards the modern dance side of things. And then once I got to school, it was kind of, once I got to college, I should say, it was kind of a disheartening time. There's a speech, Gulak actually talked about it a little bit because he knew about this my whole career. But when I was getting ready to graduate, my teachers, one of them I was very close to, pretty much sat me down and told me, like, look, you're not going to cut it for a professional company, so give up and do the education degree.
Oh, man, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah, it was rough. And that was a hard pill to swallow just when you've done something your whole life. And I don't know. I think wrestling kind of being there at that time, I don't know how things would have went had I not had wrestling.
So you ended up moving to Philly for school, right?
Yes, I moved to go to University of the Arts.
So you're already training to wrestle when you get this news from the...
Yeah, I was already training. I started training my sophomore year of college, so I was 19. So 2009, that would have been. And then I got this news probably halfway through my junior year.
So you're training and you're kind of like interested in this wrestling thing. do you know what your goals are at that point until you get told that maybe dancing isn't the option for you as a wrestler?
I think when I originally went into it, it was something that it was more like, this always intrigued me when I was a kid. Here it is. I'm going to go for it and see what happens. I remember being like, you know, I've only got 2 years because I'm in school, like, and once I'm out of school, I'm going to be in a dance company and blah, blah, blah. Like, so you got to train me fast, I remember saying all the time. So I can, like, but then, as I'm sure you're well aware, wrestling just kind of eats your entire life away and soul and latches on. And then you can't get away no matter what you do.
There's something about it.
Yeah, there really is. And so it more and more and more started to fall into wrestling and love that more than I love dance. And like, even my grades reflected it a little bit. Sorry, Mom.
Oh, no.
I dean's listed right after that, though, so it was fine.
Nice.
But yeah, I think my passion had already started to sway. So when I got that news.
Got the nose.
I got your nose. When I got that news, it was a little easier to swallow, just because I was like, well, if this isn't going to go where I always wanted it to, I have found this other thing and I can still get my education degree. And that's something that I always have and can fall back on. So that's what I did.
So you fell into discovering this wrestling training school, CZW, correct?
Yes, that is where I ended
at a
up.
haunted house at the time.
I was. Fright Factory, which is still there. They're open right now.
Yeah.
And it's right behind the ECW arena.
A very interesting location.
Yes.
What exactly did you do in the haunted house? What was your task? Or did you have various tasks?
I was a jump scare. Both years I did it.
Okay.
The first year I was a dead school teacher.
Okay.
Because there were 3 haunts every year. They had the haunted high school that year. Then there was the insane asylum. And I think the last one was pirates. Like dead pirates was the last one that year.
Interesting.
And so I was in the first one and I was a school teacher and I have this like wild laugh thing that I can do that hides down deep. I used to do it. If you go way back to when I first started managing, like before I was actually wrestling, at NWA Force 1.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we're taking it back, guys. Yeah. I was managing, I think we were the Blackgate Asylum is what we were called, but it was Alex Payne and Pele Primo.
Okay.
So we're really taking it
Wow,
back.
yes, in the past.
And I would come out and do that laugh that I would do in the haunted house. So if you want to hear it, that's where it is. But I did that, and then the second year I did it, I was a vampire because it was when stupid Twilight was popular.
That makes sense. Now, how many times did you or someone in the haunted house get assaulted for scaring people?
I actually got punched in the face more often than you would think because I was a jump out.
Yeah.
And people's reaction when something jumps in their face is to swings. Sure. And so if ever that happened, we were taught to just take the hit and kind of back off.
Oh, God.
Unless it was like clear that they were harassing you, that there's security everywhere and secret exits to get out. Like, you'd be surprised how many trapdoors are in that thing. Like,
So would you say that being in a haunted house or being a wrestler is more dangerous?
Definitely being a wrestler.
I probably have to agree.
But I mean, losing your voice for an entire month sucks.
No, I get that. Now, who was the first wrestler you came into contact with? It was through the haunted house, right?
It was. It's kind of so working in the haunted house, because of that, I ended up meeting a lot of people that lived in Philly, locals, as we'll say. And she's going to be my maid of honor in my wedding. My friend Melissa, who I made through this haunted house, was like, hey, you want to go to this wrestling show? There's like blood and stuff everywhere. It's great. And I was like, what? Right. You mean the WWF? Mm-hmm. Can I say that? I don't know.
We'll censor it.
The WWF. And she was like, no, completely different. So I ended up going to what I believe was a CZW show with her. And she's one of those people that somehow knows everybody in existence. And she knew a couple of the wrestlers. And so we were hanging around afterwards. And I ended up getting into a conversation and meeting Drew Gulak about training. And it was right before I was getting ready to go back home for the summer after my freshman year of college. And so I kind of stayed in contact until I got back that September and jumped right into training.
What does training with Drew Gulak look like?
It's difficult. He doesn't care if you're a girl or not. He's going to beat your ass the same way he beats the dudes' asses. Yeah. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. As hard as he took it on me, I was ready for everything when I finally was allowed to start having matches and whatnot. 'Cause I don't know, that's a big thing to me. Like, if you're not at a training school where they don't care about when you're going out and starting your matches and kind of monitoring that, I'd be wary. Sure. Just because I've been traded for 3 weeks and I just found a match. No, don't do that. Please don't do that.
Well, a lot of wrestling schools will just steal your money and just throw you out there for the sake of throwing you out there. Because I don't know
especially
how long,
females.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Because you'll sell tickets and stuff. And
Yep.
it was like sort of the same situation for me because having a disability.
Yeah.
JT Lightning saw right off the bat 3 months in, like, oh, maybe this guy can sell tickets and we'll throw him on the show. And at the time, I was very excited to be on a show and say that I was a wrestler. But looking back, I so regret getting thrown in the ring after 3 months because it was like on-the-job training, you know? And,
and like, you know better when you're that new and stuff. And so you're just excited to be a part of stuff.
Yeah.
I know it was probably earlier than that. Probably 4 to 6 months into my training, I started managing, which was just to start getting comfortable in front of a crowd. But that wasn't ever, like, they were like, well, we got to see how you react in front of crowds. I was like, I've been on stage since I was 2 years old. I'm not worried about it. Like, yeah. I'm not going to freeze up. Like, I don't. So it was just, but a wrestling crowd and a ballet crowd are two very different animals, and a Philadelphia CZW crowd at that time.
Oh, yeah.
The names. But so it was just to start getting used to that. And I wouldn't say that like managing necessarily early on in your wrestling training is a bad thing, just so you can feel what it's like to be out there. But it's still important to be trained if you're managing.
Absolutely.
It's still important to pay attention, like when anything's going on, you need to be in the know just as much as anybody else. So it's still important and still should be treated respectfully.
And I think that's important to point out because I'm sure you've had this happen. I don't know how many fans or like friends of friends that find out I'm a wrestler that walk up to me and be like, "Could I be your manager sometime?"
Oh,
like,
my God.
Or they say the line, "I could take a chair shot to the head," and I'm just like,
First of all, no, you couldn't.
No, you can't. Like, what are you talking about, you insane person?
Because I don't want to take a chair shot to the head. I don't
know. But Drew Gulak, do you have any crazy Drew stories? Because he's a great guy. He's a nice guy. He's super intelligent when it comes to wrestling. But I've heard some wild stories about him being a
Drew's
madman.
a wild card, man. You wouldn't think it, but he's I wouldn't say like I've specifically seen anything happen other than I have witnessed him just evaporate into thin air when we're in another country. And but then he reappears. Fine.
Well, give me an example.
I don't know. Just like he'll just go on a walk and be
He's
gone. Just be gone. You'll turn around. Where's Drew? He's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I believe
whatever. He'll be back.
I'm going to butcher the story because I don't remember the details. But someone told me that not too long ago at the PC, something was happening where they were working out with Johnny Saint, and Johnny was in the ring, and something where I think maybe Johnny wanted to like show a guy like how to be picked up, so Drew picked him up, and then Johnny said, "Okay, put me down," and then Drew body slammed old ass.
Oh my
Johnny
God,
Saint.
I think I was there for that.
Were you there?
I'm pretty sure I
Okay,
watched
do you know
him
the
do
actual
this.
story then?
Yes, because I was there when
Okay,
Johnny Saint was there. No, that's literally it.
Is that the story?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause, like, when I heard that, I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, of course Drew did that.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. Because that's 100% a Drew thing. I'm surprised he didn't do it into the ropes because that's his move. But
yeah. What was Johnny's reaction?
I mean, he was fine because he's Johnny Saint. But
Yeah. But he's old.
But we were all just like,
he wasn't exactly like a guy who took bumps, right?
right? No.
Jesus, that's ridiculous.
There was actually, this was really cool though, because when Johnny Saint was there, they've it's gotten a lot more lenient, but it was starting to open up to where they let the women in with the men and kind of intercross training. Because when I first got there, it was like, no, the women trained with the women, the men trained with the men, period. Sure. But they started mixing it a little bit when I was there, and they knew about my intergender wrestling and stuff, and they knew Drew was my trainer, so I was always from the jump allowed to go roll around with him if he was helping or doing anything, and so I usually ended up with the cruiserweights. Which was great.
Yeah.
But I remember there was one day where we were doing open ring, and Johnny Saint was there, and there was no one going into his ring. And so Drew and I just went in there and had private training with Johnny Saint for like 2.5 hours, and it was awesome.
That's amazing. I remember I did a Chikara show with Johnny Saint, and he wrestled Johnny Kidd. And it's, some modern guys try to replicate that World of Sports style, but it's totally different when you see the guys who kind of originated it.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think they went in like 15 minutes, but it flew by.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was like so effortless. Like, not everyone can do that. Did you pick up anything that like maybe you carry with you to this day from Johnny Saint?
I think learning the Lady in the Lake spot was probably I don't ever use it, but just it's like one of the things he made. It's where he curls up into the ball and sticks his hand out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just getting to learn that sequence from the man who made it was super cool.
Yeah, and again, that's another one of those spots where it's like, I think guys can like try to replicate that, but like he makes it seem like how it's supposed to be portrayed is like he's tricking you, he's luring you into this trap, and like it's so effortless, and I don't know, it's just incredible to watch a guy like that. And it's obviously it's a dying art. Yeah,
absolutely. And World of Sport, I love watching World of Sport. I think it comes from Drew making me watch a lot of World of Sport in the beginning, but it's just, if you watch it from start to finish and the way everything builds and how exciting it gets towards the end, like, and you're like, oh, that was 60 minutes, really?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like you wouldn't get that answer from a lot of girls that they like watching World of Sports. So like, you were watching that, like, is this during like your training or like over time? Like,
during training, over time, he still sends me stuff. Like, I was watching Jumping Bomb Angels the other day.
Oh yeah, those girls are incredible.
And then another one that's like, I'm pulling way down. This is an old school wrestler. Look him up, everybody. Ricky Starr. He did ballet. Yeah. I love Ricky Starr.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're training, obviously you've watched wrestling a little bit, but then you start training. How do you start looking at wrestling as far as like, because I feel like the mindset changes. Like, you see wrestling one way as a fan, and then once you start to understand and put the pieces together, you see it in this whole new way. So like, obviously you said you were drawn to the likes of like China and girls like that. So now you're becoming a wrestler and you're training. What styles, what wrestlers are you being heavily influenced by?
Well, based on who my trainer is, I watched a lot of old school, a lot of Mildred Burke, a lot of stuff like that. Old school Japanese wrestling. I remember on a road trip we watched Satomura's entire, like, from beginning to her career now, like her whole career DVD. That was like, I don't remember. We were on like a 13-hour road trip together or something like that. So we watched that the whole way. And so I started to lean more towards like Joshi and old school. Those were the two.
Gotcha. We talked a little bit about intergender wrestling. I wanted to talk about a little bit about that, but also a specific time period. And I feel like it was all kind of happening at the same time. So, and I know you've talked about it before, your feud with Chris Dickinson. That was super controversial. And that happened, I think, in the beginning of 2015, if I'm correct. Right?
I think you're right.
Okay, so like, and at the same time, around that same time period, I had just finished a feud with Veda Scott.
She just bled all over a cage, right?
She bled. We had this cage match, and it was like a year-long feud. And that very same night in PWG, it was Candice and Joey versus the Young Bucks. And I felt like, looking back at that time period in wrestling, there was this shift happening where like intergender wrestling wasn't just like this fad. Like, I really look back at you, Veda, and Candice as like the three standouts that made people kind of go, oh, wait a second, like, I think girls can keep up with the boys too. So like, going into that situation with Dickinson. Like, can you paint the backstory to it leading up to that chair shot and everything, and then how that kind of all went down?
Absolutely, because that's the part everybody forgets about.
Yeah. It's very important, like because like before you go into it, it's like obviously men on women violence is pretty controversial, right? But like I think people tend to just look at those moments where it gets real controversial, I guess the most controversial parts, and they don't look at like the build to it and like the depths and the layers and the art behind the story.
Yeah, absolutely. So leading up to it, at the time I was the only female wrestler in Beyond Wrestling. And at the time I had not lost a match in 18 months. So going into it, that was what was behind it. And Dickinson at the time had turned himself into the biggest heel of the company. Going into that night, I wasn't scheduled to wrestle, so I was just there hanging out, watching the show. In the main event, Dickinson took over, shut down the show. Pazuzu did. And then I came down from the balcony cutting a promo saying, no, you're not going to do this. I wasn't scheduled to wrestle. Screw it. Let's do it right now. No DQ. That's why we were in street clothes. So there's the premise behind that. Yep. He did start with shorts on. I proceeded to rip them off and beat him and choke him with them at one point. So that's why he ended up in his underwear. All the explanations for the weird stuff that was going on. You missed the chair shot I gave him before I ever got hit in the head.
Right, people forget about that.
Yep.
Yeah, because that's you could see obviously the angle with Chris on you, but like if you look on YouTube, vice versa, like you could see the chair shots from you to Chris.
And I mean, I hit him.
You did.
But it's crazy to me that the fact that I'm a woman who hit him, nobody cared, but you reverse it and the whole world blew up.
And that's a good point to bring up because. And we'll get back to this story, obviously, but in WWE, I feel like they have this, like, no violence, men on women. But if you look at the product over the last couple years, like, there's really no hesitation for a girl to put their hands on a guy. And it kind of seems like one of these situations where it's like, is this really how you want to present it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, it's a story. It's wrestling blurs this line between reality and fiction, and I understand why they wouldn't want men on women violence, but I mean, you can't go one way and then not the other. I don't know. What do you think?
Here's how I look at it. This is my argument every time with intergender wrestling. Y'all go see the movie Wonder Woman?
Mm-hmm.
Was she getting hit in the face by dudes and thrown around and beat to shit?
That's a very good point.
Did you watch it, and did you really you were entertained the whole time, right? You suspended your disbelief for that moment?
I don't think anyone was sending any emails or threatening messages that they're going to boycott the product and not watch the movie. And
yes, and like here's the thing with wrestling in this day and age. It's a variation of a very athletic performance art is how I like to look at it. We're here to take you along in a journey and make you forget about whatever problems, whatever thing is going on outside for a little while, and for however 2-3 hours you have that show, you can forget everything and suspend your disbelief and go into a fantasy world where you see all these characters interact with each other. So what's the difference between live performance and video performance?
I agree.
And that's my argument for why intergender wrestling shouldn't be a problem.
No, I do think, and this just doesn't apply for intergender wrestling, I guess in wrestling in general, I think part of the problem with people being on the fence about so many subjects within wrestling comes down to the idea that, if I'm playing Gregory Iron, the character, to some extent, and I'm sure we've all claimed it in interviews, and we've heard it over and over again, like, Gregory Iron is an extension of who I am, Gregory Iron is me amped up, and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, when I go down the street, I'm still Gregory Iron. When you go down the street, like, you're still kind of Kimber Lee, right? Like, you're, like, they see you as that character. It's not the same as, like, Batman. Like, he's, obviously the actual actor. He's Ben Affleck, whoever's playing Batman at the time, So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I understand why people have a hard time deciphering, but I feel like just this year there's like this shift of like people like acknowledging their real name and stuff, particularly on social media. And I think that's partially so that they can own their name when they're signed places. You know what I'm talking about? Like, for example, Ethan Page wrestling as Julian, and like things of that nature. So like, do you see the blurring of that line or the changing of the guard in that regard?
Yeah, I think I agree with you that the changing is happening there too, and the name switches and stuff are funny.
Yeah, absolutely. 2016, you get a tryout with WWE and you end up getting signed. How does that come about?
It was just all email. I got an email for a tryout and couldn't believe it. I went, "Hey Drew, is this real?" Because he had recently done the Cruiserweight Classic, and he went, "Oh yeah, that's a real person from there. You reply." Yeah. And I remember I actually had to like quickly cut a Europe tour short because I was supposed to be gone for that, but the plane ticket hadn't been bought yet. So I was like, "Wait!" like,
oh no.
But I ended up getting it all to work out, and then did the tryout. Waited month or two, I can't remember exactly how long it was, and they were like, yeah, we want to bring you down and sign you. Can you get here by January? This was October. And I was like, end of October, and I was like, yeah, sure, I can make that happen.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, right. Not a lot of time there.
But I did somehow in a whirlwind make it down there. It was literally packed up what I could fit into a rental car and drove it down there, and that's what I did, and bought everything else new once I got there. Not that I even had anything, but
right. So going into that, do you know right away that you have to change your name?
I didn't, but did at the same time. Now it seems like they're not really making people change it, but at the time it was explained to me that they wanted to be able to license and own your name and everything about it. And so my intellectual property for the legal term was my Kimber Lee name, and then they got the Abby Lath name. So
where'd that name come from?
There's actually a lot of meaning behind it. I did choose it. They have you write a list of, at least this is what they did for me. They had me write a list, and then they picked off that list, or they could have tossed the list into the fire and given me something else.
Right.
But the Abbey, spelled Abbey, it's rough Gaelic translation because my family has Irish heritage, but the Abbey spelled that way roughly translates to Little Smith, which is my mom's maiden name. And also my grandfather was not a professional, an amateur wrestler in high school. He lettered all 4 years, and so that's cool to me too. And then Lath is a rough translation from the word Orlaith, which is princess. So Little Smith Princess.
That makes sense. Yeah, Princess Kimber Lee.
Yep.
Linking it all together. During your time in WWE, was there any like standout matches, and was there anyone behind the scene that really pushed you and taught you new things and kind of had your back when you're there in NXT?
I would say probably Robbie Brookside. Me and him got really close. He helped me a lot. I was in his class a lot of the time, and he gets the new guys. But it was because they knew I could work well with people who were new coming in, and so I ended up getting to work with him a lot. And I still am in contact with him. And then Norman Smiley, too, was somebody who I felt really helped me out a lot when I was down there.
Did you deal a lot with Sarah Del Rey?
I didn't really, actually, because I was never in her class. I was in her class like here and there, but most of the time I was bouncing between Norman or Robbie.
You worked a lot with Sarah on the Indies, though, right?
No, never once.
Oh man, that's disappointing. I feel like you guys would have like great chemistry.
I still am bitter to this day because of this. I was supposed to wrestle her at a girls' night out at AIW.
Okay.
Then Japan called and said they wanted her to wrestle Haley Hatred, and the match got changed.
Oh, that's awful. Sarah was so good at what she did, and I feel like having her in NXT right now is very much for the benefit of all the girls there.
For me, she was like the it's Sarah, and she stayed that way. So I never even really talked to her that much because it was Sarah Del Rey, and I was like, when it's that person that you idolize, you're like, hi, I love you.
Yeah, that intimidation factor.
Yeah.
Right? What about matches in NXT? Do you have any like standouts that like you remember that,
I mean, obviously, I'd say my first round Mae Young Classic is the number one.
That was great.
Against Jazzy Gabbert. the alpha female. But
Yeah.
yeah, that just I didn't even expect the crowd to come up the way they did at that one point, and I think like it was just insane, the energy in that building.
Yeah. Now, during your time there, or is this after, do you decide to become vegan?
It was right at the tail end that it came about. But what actually happened was Zelina, I'm actually pretty good friends with her, Zelina Vega. She's a vegan, and I was just talking to her about it, and like, then I'm friends with like the British boys who are all vegan.
Yeah, Mark, Pete,
yeah,
all those
all
guys.
of them.
Yep.
And Trent Seven constantly just watch What the Health, man. Just watch it and just eat plants. So eventually I caved and I watched it, and I was like, oh shit, I should just eat plants. Like, meat's scary. It's going to kill me.
Yeah, I literally just watched that because my trainer, Vince, he used to wrestle, and I do strength and conditioning with him all the time. He's been pushing me for months to watch that documentary, and I literally just watched it a couple days ago.
Well, you got to watch I think it's coming out in like 3 days. I'm going to buy it. I'll send you the link. It's called Game Changers.
Okay.
It was James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Jackie Chan, and it's follows different athletes and puts them on a plant-based diet and watches what does blood work, watches what happens to them. It's literally it shows the strongest man in the world who is vegan, and all just how your body's not meant to eat meat, and it has nothing to do with the animal side if that's something that you don't care about, but it comes later, trust me.
Yeah, no, please send me that link because I want to check that out.
Yeah, no, I'll show you the preview for it when we get off of this podcast.
Okay.
But yeah, so I watched What the Health, and then it was kind of I was getting ready to give up dairy too because I have Crohn's disease, and I was just getting sick of being sick all the time because I never really listened. I ate whatever I wanted because they told me all the time like dairy's gonna kill, like stop eating dairy. And I was like, but cheese.
Right. I get that. Have you ever been to Melt?
All the time they have vegan.
Yeah, they have vegan options, but oh my god, it's so good.
And now they have vegan mac and cheese that they just got, and they have vegan French onion soup. Yeah, they got a lot of stuff there for us. But I'm getting off on a tangent. So I watched What the Health, changed for health reasons. Yep. And then after that, you just start getting curious, and so you start watching the other documentaries. And then I stumbled across Earthlings, which is a free documentary. If you Google it, you can find it. Joaquin Phoenix actually helped produce that one, and it's rough. I'm not even gonna lie, and say it's easy to get through. No, it's shows the process of what it takes to get your food to your table and bridges the disconnect gap. And once I saw that, I just sobbed, and then the animal rights stuff started after that.
Yeah. So you're really big into the animal activist stuff now.
Oh yeah, 100%. Just because. In this, I'm not even going to say, because I get the argument all the time, well, what if you were on a stranded island? Well, we had to eat meat back in the day. Well, blah, 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 blah. You're right. 100% our ancestors had to hunt to survive. They didn't have a choice. But you got to think, they were getting a kill once in a who knows how long. So most of the time, their food supply was plant-based. And the difference is now we're not in a situation where we have to go out and hunt for our food. We have the convenience of stores and being able to just go pick up whatever we want. So if we have options out there that you don't involve torture, don't involve killing, don't involve mass breeding, don't involve paying into something that's literally destroying our planet, why would you choose to do that?
For sure. What would you say to someone that is on the fence about converting to a vegan lifestyle and their mindset is just well, I can't give up cheese or I can't give up milk or blah, blah, blah. If you haven't sold them already, what's the one thing that you could tell them to say, hey?
Well, I'm very honest with the dairy and cheese addiction because it is real. You are literally addicted to cheese. The protein casein that is in cheese is actually what makes the calf keep coming back to the mom to eat. It attaches to your dopamine receptors in the same way that heroin does.
Yep.
Not to the same extent, but you're still addicted. It it's the same chemical reaction, and so you keep going to eat cheese because you're coming back to the mom. Is
Sure.
what it is. It takes about 2 weeks, and then you don't even miss it. Your palate, everything changes.
Yeah, from watching What the Health, I noticed that it seemed like the 14-day time period was like the length of time in which like these people with like debilitating injuries were just like getting off their walkers and walking again,
Yep.
and they were off all their medications. It was kind of an eye opener. Like it's something that I kind of want to look into. As much
I've
as I love
been
cheese and everything.
completely symptom free of my Crohn's disease since I went vegan 2 years ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Back in April of 2019, you made a post on social media about getting your 2-month AA coin.
Yes.
And so with anyone who ends up going to AA, obviously you have to admit to yourself that at some point there's a problem.
Yeah.
At what point do you start to think that whatever your lifestyle is becoming is a problem, and do you know like what might have been the cause of that?
I don't know if I want to go into exact detail
Sure.
what situation triggered me,
Yep.
but everyone's going to have their breaking point. Everyone is going to have something that's going to make them click and go, I need to fix myself. And that's the key, because if it's not you fixing you for you, it's not going to work. And I had actually previously been sober for a year and not drank, but then at that particular time in my life, it wasn't for me, it was for somebody else. And then when that somebody else wasn't a part of my life anymore, I went, well, screw it. I'm going to do whatever I want. And I went back right into kind of drinking, and then it just got heavier and heavier and heavier. And then my depression kicked in, and it just kept building and building and building. And I'd have nights where I'd do okay, but then I wouldn't do okay. And I come from a family of alcoholics, and I just had one night that was the breaking point where it was, I need to fix myself or I'm going to lose everything that I have. And I was scared. I was terrified to walk into a meeting. I was like, it's going to be all old people, and they're going to be smoking. They can't smoke inside anymore, so it's not that. Because I have an aunt who has been sober through AA for 18 years, I think is what she just got. So I talked to her about it going into it, and she was like, no, they're going to love you. They're going to accept you like family. Just go in there. And so I did, and haven't had a drink since that day, February 26th. And I just recently passed 7 months, working on 8 now. So
That's amazing. Growing up, I was around alcohol because of my parents all the time, and my mom was an addict. She was into drugs and alcohol, so like hearing stories about people who persevere and overcome this, I don't know, I guess it's a disease really, because when I was younger, when my mom passed away in 2010 of a drug overdose, and I remember at the time there was like a little bit of this anger in my heart over it, because I feel like she just threw her whole life away.
yeah.
But what we end up discovering over the next decade about mental health, and like again how addiction is really like it's a big disease, and like people have differing opinions about it. Once you kind of realize that it's a disease, and like sometimes you can't help yourself, it kind of changes your perspective on the situation. So to hear a triumph, that's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. It 100% is a disease, and you either figure out how to fix it or it'll kill you.
Yeah.
It's really, there's 2 ways out of it, and that's it.
Yeah. We talk about the triumph of overcoming an obstacle like addiction. I want to talk about an even cooler triumph, finding love and happiness. And that brings me to Zachary Wentz. Now, I think I met Zach for the first time maybe about 3 years ago. He was just starting, and I had to work some matches right here at Rockstar, where we're sitting. This bank we're in is in Dayton, Ohio, and
That's the only information you're getting there.
that you're not knowing where the bank is, how much
Dayton,
money could
Ohio.
be in the bank.
Rockstar.
Yep.
There's your clues.
So I worked with Zach very early on, and we had some really basic matches, and we did a cool little angle because I had the Iron Curtain thing going on where I had like my little goons protecting me and stuff, and it was fun. But to see where he came from 3 or 4 years ago to now, and like just how he's killing it. Like, it's incredible. What was your first interaction with Zach Wentz?
I've probably known Zach since he's around when he started wrestling, just because of where he was training, and I was still at CZW at the time, so he would be at shows following the Christs around, and so I had known him for a long time, but we just never interacted really, more than just like, hey, what's up? Hey, how are you? Good to see you. What triggered it was he put up a post where he had a flannel tied around his waist, and if you've ever seen me dressed ever, that's like today I don't have one, but I did have a flannel on earlier at work. So that's like my whole like style. Hey, there's the grunge thing again. And he posted it because I guess when he first started wrestling, he wrestled with came out with a flannel tied around his waist. And so I posted, like, I commented on the picture something like, sweet flannel, like, but I'm the one with street cred. And then here comes Zach sliding into the DMs.
Yeah, you gave him that opening. You gave him the opportunity and he took it.
And we just got to talking from there, and DMs turned to phone number exchange, turned to, hey, come hang out with me in Florida, turned to, want to be my girlfriend? So.
What would you say?
And now I'm his fiance.
You are his fiance. Like, what kind of positive impact has Zach brought you in your life?
He's the best, man. Like, without going into detail, there's been some shit that I have gone through in my life, and he is just the most supportive of everything that I want to do. It doesn't matter, like, and we just get the whole wrestling thing. Like, we're not always going to be together. We're going to have to travel. Sure, I cry and whine, but like, it's never been like, you can't do this. Like, no, because that situation happens to people. Like, and we don't really have the jealousy thing either. We don't even really travel together, like, at all right now. It'd be more fun to travel together. And that does not mean I'm saying, like, hey, make us a tag team. Like, no, I don't need that. Like, I'm me, he's him. That's cool if that's what you want. If you want us to work together too, I suppose we can.
It is a super rare occurrence where boyfriend, girlfriend in wrestling don't want to travel together, or aren't necessarily traveling together, and they're not replicating each other's moves. You know? Like, I feel like
I think he'll do it every once in a while. Watch for it. He'll do the curtsy that I do as a joke, because he's stealing my moves instead of the girl stealing the dude's moves, which is 90% of what happens.
Yeah.
But not often. He does it like once in a blue moon. There was actually a match where him and Dez tried to see who would do more, and I think they both did it like 6 times.
That's awesome.
Because I was out there counting. But that's about as far as that goes. I've got my own set of moves. I don't need his.
Yeah, a badass set of moves.
And I can't do half of his moves anyway, because that kid is anti-gravity.
He's super. He defies logic when it comes to gravity.
We actually tagged here at Rockstar not long ago, and I was like, have you watched any of my work? I don't do that.
Right.
But yeah, it's great. He's supportive of everything. We get each other. He just, like, it's amazing. I never thought I was going to find, like, there was a point in my life where I was like, I'm never getting married. I don't want to do it. And he was the person who made me say, oh, I want to get married. And now, like, I'm having, like, oh, I kind of want to have babies.
Uh-oh.
Not yet. Don't worry. But
and it's all through this unique, weird, strange world known as pro wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't get into pro wrestling, you never find the love of your life.
Yep, that's the trick right there.
What
everyone should wrestle? No, that's not. Don't listen to any of that.
No. really think about your options before you jump into pro wrestling.
Trust me, it's a disease.
What keeps you falling in love with pro wrestling?
I think it's the way it feels for that 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30, 60, whatever it is that you're out there. That feeling of being in front of a crowd, that feeling of being able to manipulate them to do what you want, that feeling of being larger than life. Like, I think that's the part that we're all addicted to.
For sure. And you know what? I glossed over it when we were talking about the Dickinson angle. Like, I just got done with that angle with Veda. And when I saw what happened in that video to you, I remember I messaged you because you got me. And I think that's the art of.
We got everybody.
Yeah, I think that's the art of wrestling.
I went radio silent for a week after that.
That's why I messaged you, because I saw and I was like, holy shit! Like, he beat the fuck out of her, and so like. I was worried, and here I just gotten out of a program where I beat a girl with a beer bottle and I busted her open, and just like I was fighting her in a cage. But like, I really think like that's the true magic of what we do as pro wrestlers, even in this day and age where like everybody knows everything. Like, when you still can create those moments where like you got them. Like that's an incredible thing, and like you deserve props for that.
I took a lot of shit for that too. Like he did also. I'm sure you and Veda got it too. Like
so much. Actually, I remember the big thing was that night that Candice bled and Veda bled. Velvet Sky like went into some subliminal ranting on social media about how
I got Angelina Love.
Okay,
that was who ranted subliminally about me.
I can't remember what it was said exactly, but like how like girls are being dumb and how like you need to know how to work and stuff. But it's like it's storytelling. It's just like a deeper, more intense storytelling, you know. So, but kudos to you and everything you do and continue to do. What's next in your pro wrestling career? Where do you see yourself?
You know, I don't know if I have a particular direction right now. I'm just having fun and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I know I want to travel more. I've been kind of landlocked in the U.S. for a little while. I want to get back to Europe. I'd love to go back to Japan. Australia is like a bucket list for me. Anybody who's listening out there, hit me up. Bombshell Kimberly with an ly at gmail.com. No. Yeah, just I want to do this until it's not fun anymore or my body says you're done.
Last thing, what inspires you?
Just anything in general?
Anything. Yeah. Life, what keeps you going?
I don't know. Animals, honestly. Animals, nature.
We didn't talk about animals at all.
We barely did.
Because you know what? If we did start talking about animals, we would be talking for another hour.
Yeah, we'd be here for another hour. But if any of you do want to ever hit me up about any of my... Want to hit me up respectfully.
Yeah, you have to be very specific in this day and age.
If you're a bacon bro, you can go kick rocks somewhere. But if you want to ever talk about anything, and you don't have to be a vegan or like, I'm happy to have a civil like, let's talk about why I feel the way I feel conversation. Like, I'm cool with it. Yes, some of the crap I post is a little in your face, but it's supposed to be that way to shock you, to get you to see it. I'm not doing it to accuse anybody of anything, because that's what I get told all the time. But anyway, I digress. I'll start going. So I'm gonna shut up.
Top favorite animal?
Oh, it's between cows and pigs.
All right.
Now that I've gone to sanctuaries and like hung out with them, like pigs are so freaking smart.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. Yeah. They're little kids. Like, they're so smart.
Yeah.
Because they're smarter than dogs. And then cows are just giant grass puppies. So.
Awesome. Where can people find you on social media?
I believe I said it earlier for my first cheap plug for number 2.
Say it again.
On Instagram and Twitter. They are the only 2 I have that are public. They are both the same handle. It is at Kimber_LEE90, and I've got a blue check mark, so I'm easy to find.
Verified. Kimber Lee, she's a wrestler. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Everyone knows that I love good vintage wrestling merch. But when I want the best of the best, when it comes to finding vintage wrestling memorabilia, I go to the Savage Stash. The Savage Stash is your wheeler and dealer for the best in vintage wrestling shirts, hats, jackets, accessories, and everything in between. I've picked up some of my all-time favorite vintage items from the Savage Stash, and that's including the original Hunter Hearst Helmsley How to Be a Snob tee from 1995, and I've never seen that anywhere else online. And just last year, I picked up a vintage 1996 WWF Royal Rumble tee that I gifted to Johnny Gargano for his birthday. It was in mint condition, and I'm telling you, Johnny could not have been happier when he opened that up, because I know the Royal Rumble in 96 meant a lot to him with Shawn Michaels winning and everything. I've also got a wide variety of fanny packs from the Savage Stash over the years, including a rare WWF Championship fanny pack from 1991, and of course, their ultra stylish green and purple 3-pocket Savage Stash fanny pack that I use to store all of my goodies when I'm on the road. Right now on SavageStash.com, they're selling exclusive Intercontinental Championship pins with interchangeable white and black straps. You can get black or white strap alone for $10, the black or the white strap with the plate for $20, or you can get both straps and the plate for just $30. That's right, $30. And if you're buying this pin or any other fanny packs, hats, or vintage merch at thesavagestash.com, you can use promo code IRON, IRON, at checkout to save 10% on your order. That's right. It's an exclusive offer to listeners of Iron on Wrestling. If you go to thesavagestash.com and buy any items at all and use the promo code IRON, the Savage Stash will take 10% off your entire order. To see all of their current or past items, go to www.thesavagestash.com, follow them at The Savage Stash on Twitter or Instagram, and like them on Facebook at The Savage Stash. Hey, what are you waiting for? If you're looking for the best in vintage merch, go to the place that can't be topped. Check out The Savage Stash, the absolute cream of the crop. That was my interview with Kimber Lee. I'd like to thank Kim for taking hour of her time out of the day, driving a little bit out of her way in Dayton, Ohio, to spend some time with your favorite inspirational wrestler. I really appreciate that. Kim's still doing great things, and her story is so inspiring. Aaron, 3 things you learned from listening to the interview with Kimber Lee today. Go. We got 2 minutes.
First off, I'd like to thank Kim as well. Great job, great interview, both of you, and she said some inspiring words. Johnny Saint, that's number 1.
Yeah.
The story with Johnny Saint and Drew Gulak,
Okay.
and good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I'd never heard that before, and that's my first time, so I enjoyed that.
Drew Gulak is insane.
Yeah. Number 2, I also did not know that she was a vegan.
Yep,
And that's an interesting lifestyle to me.
it is.
So I would never be a part of it, but I respect people that are, and, good on her.
She had some great selling points, though.
Yeah, she did. But I'm not going to stop eating meat. I love steak and ribs
I believe you.
and pepperoni. Oh, okay. So, and then my third thing, I did not know that she celebrates Left-Handed Day on a regular annual occasion. Because, in fact, her great-great-great-grandmother was left-handed. Fantastic.
Did you even listen to the interview?
Yes.
She never said
I heard
that.
the Johnny Saint story. I heard the vegan story. And then the left-handed No?
That's not
That's
a real
not-
story. You are.
You must have been talking, and I zoned out. But, hey, great interview this week.
You're an actual moron. This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I don't even know why I have you on this show. So that's it for this week. Aaron learned at least 2 things. We know that somehow he learned them. But next week, we're coming back at you with another great podcast. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, that's a personal opinion. All the feedback I've got is positive. Next week, it's going to be me and Kurt Stallion. You might know him from his time in Evolve recently, his WWE Evolve match from the network, and you've probably seen him on an indie show somewhere across the country because this guy's all over the place. He's killing it, and he's one of the leading examples, I feel, as far as guys who have really shown that, like, if you just put yourself out there and work hard and bust your ass and you really put in the miles, you will get noticed. And Kurt Stallion has put in some miles, and we're going to talk about that and a lot of other stuff next week. But until then, if you're not doing it already, follow Iron on Wrestling on all forms of social media. We're talking Facebook. Give us a like. Twitter, you can follow us at Iron on Wrestling, as well as that same at Iron on Wrestling at Instagram.com. You can also download the podcast on all of the major podcasting platforms. That includes the big ones: Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Podbean, Libsyn. Wherever you download your podcast, you can find us, and you can find entire episodes on YouTube.com. Subscribe, like, give us a 5-star review. Let us know what you think of the show. Keep supporting. We're still growing. This is only episode 3, but we got a lot of good content to come, and we are out of time. Aaron, if you're here next week, great. If you're not, I'm okay with that too.
Hey, follow me at Fair to Air. Like my photos.
If you post photos, people can like them, Aaron. I know you're
Okay.
getting older.
Hey, go Browns.
I don't watch fake sports. Hey, guys. See you next week. Thanks for your time. Peace out. Whoop, whoop.